Well, we all love giving treats to our dogs, especially if they're healthy ones. But the question is, are carrots one of those treats? Are carrots safe and good for dogs?
So what are the good things about carrots? The pros about carrots?
So I think a lot of people like to feed their dogs carrots because they think they're crunchy, so they clean their teeth. I think, some dogs really do like veggies. And so carrots is kind of an easy option. A lot of people just have them laying around. It's a low calorie snack. You don't have to worry about calories or fat or giving your dog too much, right? Some people think they'll freeze like the whole carrot and then give it as like a natural chew.
Like a popsicle
like
kind
for
of thing.
Enrichment, yes.
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the
I think too,
reasons
like a lot of
do
people
it.
like to eat baby carrots, and it's something that you have one, your dog has one.
Yeah, it's a little
very
bonding.
Sharing and caring.
Yes, I think that makes sense to me. So then, there's concern then too from a lot of the dog world, especially raw feeders, I feel like. But so what are some of the negatives or the concerns that you hear about with carrots?
I have heard the big one is that carrots are high on the glycemic index. That means that they contain a lot of sugar.
Yes, that's what's talked about.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of concern that basically giving your dog a carrot is like putting a teaspoonful of sugar right in their mouth. Some people worry that if they give their dog, like if you have a little dog, if you give it like a fat little baby carrot, or if you have a big dog and give it a big carrot, that they might choke.
So choking hazard would be a concern.
Yeah.
And then, the other thing that I think of and hear about too is that they just aren't really digestible. And so people will see it in their poop.
Right.
And get really concerned about that. And so maybe
so
not concerned, but maybe it's pointless.
You feed I think people are concerned. You feed your dog a carrot, and then when you got to pick at the poo, there's your carrots completely undigested. Just little chunks of carrot sitting in the poo. And so then people wonder, is there something wrong with my dog because he was clearly not able to digest this carrot?
So we're gonna talk about the real dirt on carrots.
We're here to shed some carroty light.
Yes,
on
carroty light.
Yeah.
Really the biggest concern. So let's talk about there's a couple of easy ones to kind of go through first. So I think the choking hazard. Let's talk about the choking hazard aspect first. How likely is it that a dog is going to choke on a carrot? Like if you gave them something, that was just kind of like a whole carrot, maybe you froze it and you gave it as like a natural chew. What's the likelihood or concern about that?
You always have to look at the ratio of the size of the dog compared to the size of the treat that you're giving them. Anything could become a choking hazard.
Yeah.
If your dog doesn't have a lot of teeth, a carrot could be difficult for them to contend with. And then at some point they might just say, I'll just swallow it. So I think obviously when you do anything with your dog that you haven't done before, you watch them a little bit. You make sure everything is safe, make sure everything is going okay. If it alarms you, you can cut carrots into smaller pieces. And that will kind of ensure that, a bigger dog is not going to choke on a piece of carrot. I can't say that I've ever heard of that happening.
I haven't either.
But it probably could.
I think it could.
Dogs choke on all sorts of things, so any kind of random
Well,
thing.
and if you have dogs, especially, I feel like there are breeds that are more prone to be gulpers.
Right.
And I have one of those. And so I do have to be very picky and choosy about what are those things that I give them. How big are they? How hard are they? Can they chew through them? Things like that. So that's been a tricky thing to navigate. So it's kind of know your dog, know the breed maybe too, before you would maybe just give that. So then I think the next easy one to talk about is the digestibility factor.
Right.
Are they really able to even digest carrots? Should you be concerned if you see it in the dog's poop? And the reality is dogs cannot break down vegetables like people can. They're carnivores. And so they don't have the right teeth to grind it up, break down the cell wall with amylase, which is found in the saliva of omnivores and people. And so if you don't do something to the carrots and you just give them a whole raw carrot or just raw carrots, you're going to see pieces pass through because their body really doesn't break it down and can't use it unless you do something to the carrots.
Right, and I think because of that too. So it can be an easy thing to kind of overwhelm your dog's ability to deal with vegetation. And so You know, if you're eating a baby carrot, and everyone that you eat, you give your dog a baby carrot, depending on the size of the dog, you could pretty quickly overwhelm their body's ability to deal with the carrots at all, and you could cause some diarrhea in that fashion. It doesn't mean that the dog is allergic to carrots or anything like that. It just means that, in general, you want to keep the vegetable, fruit levels in the dog's diet pretty minimal. And so if you have a small dog, you know, it could be that a teaspoon of vegetables, any more than that in a day, could kind of tip them over the edge into, now my guts can't handle it.
They really cannot do much more than 6% of their overall diet in good carbohydrates like fruits and vegetables. It's really, that's kind of the cap, and it depends on the dog. Some have
Right.
more of a tolerance, some have less.
Right, and so this idea that, you know, oh, dogs are genetically distinct from wolves and they're designed to be able to digest carbohydrates, I disagree with that. I don't think that that's been proven in an adequate study. But dogs, like each individual dog, we learned this from the Feed Real class, that's what makes them facultative carnivores. So what makes dogs facultative carnivores is that each individual dog has anywhere between 0, so none, or 32 copies, somewhere in that range, of the gene that codes for amylase. Amylase is the enzyme that's in human salivary glands that allows us, we chew, we mix the amylase and the saliva with our food. That's how we could break down the cell walls of plants somewhat. Like, we're also not great at it. But dogs' salivary glands don't produce amylase. Their pancreas produces a little bit, like a minimal amount, and they're not big chewers either. As humans, we also have the advantage that we can cook.
So that's the next topic of conversation, is let's talk about kind of where do they fall on the glycemic index? This big concern that it's basically like feeding your dog sugar. Let's really talk about that.
Yeah, and even like the people who did, I can't remember who it was it Keto Pet, who did a piece on a video that Karen Becker and Rodney Habib put out about making the dog's diet more ketogenic, for example, so that it would be better for dogs with cancer. And they were very much like, use these vegetables, not these vegetables. And carrots were definitely on the naughty list.
They were on the naughty list.
Because there's this perception that they're so high in sugar.
Right. So we did the work for you so that you don't necessarily have to. So let's kind of break this down. The truth is, it depends on the state of the carrot, where it falls on the glycemic index. So the glycemic index is basically the body's response to a food with their glucose levels. It goes from 0 to 100, 0 being good, 100 being very, very high, right? And so here's the truth of the matter. If you have something like raw carrots, for example, you're down at like the 15 or 16 range, which is extremely low on the glycemic index. If you go to something that's like a lightly steamed, you're gonna be around 39 or 40 on the glycemic index. So you're not even halfway up the scale.
Right. And that's still considered like reasonable. You're not hitting high numbers until you get like past 70, 75.
Yep. And so then here we have, these have been boiled and they've been pureed. And so these are going to be around 84 or 85. Now that is comparable to like a sweet potato, which is pretty high in starch, pretty high in sugar for a vegetable. And so this is definitely pretty high. I mean, you're getting closer to that 100. What is happening here is that the more you're going down this scale, the more you're breaking down the fiber and the cell wall, and the fiber is what helps it to pass through slowly without it causing this spike in blood sugar, right? And so the more you process the carrots, the more you cook the carrots, the higher on the glycemic index they go. And so really, there's kind of two places to land here, now knowing all of this information. You can, most certainly, it is perfectly fine to use raw carrots as enrichment or like, a quick treat to share with them. That's perfectly fine. It's not going to hurt them. They're also not going to get much out of it. They're not going to get much, nutrition out of it or anything like that. And it is mostly, you're going to see it in their stool because they can't break it
and
down.
they're not really going to clean your dog's teeth.
No, they really don't clean your dog's
Because
teeth.
that's what bones are designed
That's
for.
what the edible bones, we recommend those are for. That's nature's dental floss and toothbrush. And so if you do want them to get it as part of their diet and a really good benefit out of it, your best bet is to have kind of a lightly steamed version. It brings out even more beta carotene and it kind of breaks down that cell wall for them. And then you're able to offer that in a way that they can actually get some of those vitamins and nutrients. And then obviously if you're going to go higher, you do kind of have that higher on the glycemic index, but even that, if you do it in moderation, is not a concern. It's not uncommon to see sweet potato chews at high-end pet food stores, right? Like they're nice and tough. It gives them something to, a little bit different. I don't even hesitate to give my dog a sweet potato chew. I'm certainly not going to worry about giving them maybe pureed carrots every once in a while.
Right. So the only thing that you might be concerned about is like if you actually have a diabetic dog.
Sure.
Or a dog with Cushing's who's prone to diabetes or predisposed to it. For the vast majority of our regular dogs, you want to feed them carrots, feed them carrots. And I always just warn people, like, you're going to see chunks of carrot come out in the poo. But it's okay. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It just shows you how indigestible they are.
And if really, there's also this to take into consideration. They don't need carrots either.
Right.
So this is really an optional thing. Is it a good, beneficial thing to add to their diet in an appropriate way so they can get some beta carotene? Absolutely. That's a great idea. But if it causes you concern, they're certainly not going to be missing anything, or it's not going to be detrimental to their health if they don't eat carrots.
Right. So it is safe to feed your dogs carrots as treats. You're not likely to cause a massive sugar spike. Just make sure they're organic, have some variety.
And if you're going to add them to your dog's diet for the nutritional benefits, just make sure to keep it to a lightly steamed. Don't overcook them. That's going to keep that sugar content down for them and also enhance the level of beta carotene, and that would be the optimal way to do that. So kind of adding it in as part of their variety in their fruits and vegetables, as long as you're keeping that in moderation, I think you're good to go. And carrots are great for dogs.
Yes, they are.